for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marissa Martirana. I'm a registered dietitian, and I have a private practice where I'm now seeing clients virtually. I also contract with different companies to provide nutrition-related services. And as Tiffany said, this month we're highlighting Better Breakfast Month. And a little history about Better Breakfast Month is it was first sort of thought of around World War I time. The government decided to kind of promote better breakfast to the US citizens, and it gained traction again in about World War II time. And actually in 1951, one of the cereal companies decided to take that on and promote breakfast as a campaign, as there was more research coming in proving the benefits of starting your day with breakfast for both adults and school-aged children. And they decided on the month of September, which makes sense because that's when schools are starting to go back in session, and that's when a lot of businesses and workers are starting to go back to work after having summer vacation. And so the actual day, I believe, is the 26th, but we're going to celebrate it all month. And so that's how we came up with the theme for this month. So curious, who are regular breakfast eaters out there? I am. Yeah, so interestingly enough, a lot of my clients that I see, that's one meal that's sort of glossed over and skipped over. And so when learning how to fuel our bodies better, or learning how to fuel our kids' bodies better, a really simple goal to start with is including a balanced breakfast. And a lot of people get a little bit intimidated and think, gosh, I'm so busy in the morning, I'm running out the door to go to work or to take my kids to school, I don't have time. And the truth of the matter is breakfast doesn't have to be complicated. As long as we get some whole grains, some protein, some healthy fat, which we're going to talk about today in these 3 simple recipes, then we're going to ensure that we're giving our brains that carbohydrate dose or that glucose dose that our brains rely on in the morning after a long night's sleep. Okay, so the first recipe that we're going to be doing is called oatmeal breakfast cookies. And even though they're called cookies, they are very nutritious and they're dietitian approved, very simple. They tend to appeal to both adults and children, which is a huge benefit. Sometimes with kids, depending on what age they are, it's really hard to get a complete balanced breakfast that's quick in them before they head to school, or even before they head to virtual school, because they still rely on that energy to keep them focused on the computer or in-person learning. So this recipe calls for 4 simple ingredients: bananas, chocolate chips, applesauce, and quick oats. And so the great thing about this recipe is that it could be prepared ahead of time so that you don't have to do it in the morning. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with your bananas, and they need to be fairly ripe and soft. And so I always like to kind of smash them in the peeling to kind of get them even softer. So we're just going to do 3 softened ripe bananas in the bowl. Does anybody have their favorite breakfast recipes or go-tos that they want to share?
I just said on days when I know I'm going to be in a real rush, I make overnight oats. And so it's literally pull it out of the fridge and it's ready to go.
Yeah, that's a great one. Who else does overnight oats? So I'm just going to be mashing these bananas in this bowl right here.
I haven't done overnight oats much, but I like whatever fruit I have in the refrigerator with a sprinkling of granola on top of almond milk yogurt.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I tend to go for kind of similar, a yogurt parfait. I like yogurt, whatever quick fruit I can get my hands on, and then I like granola on top. So it kind of covers all components of carb, protein, and fat. And so, like I said before, our brains and our muscles, they rely on carbohydrate. And so if our brains don't get that, especially after, being without food for 9 to 10 hours, some of the consequences are trouble concentrating, maybe some dizziness, headaches, just kind of feeling off. I don't know if anybody can relate to that.
Marissa, Janet has asked the question. I don't think you're going to see the screen that says, should you eat breakfast if you're not hungry? I usually get hungry later in the morning at around 10 a.m.
Yeah, that's something that I hear a lot from my clients, and especially kids too. And the general rule of thumb is you should eat within an hour, no more than 2 hours after you wake up. And you will get your hunger signals back if you start to get in that habit of eating breakfast within that time frame. You'll notice that your body will get used to that, and then you'll start to be hungrier in the morning. But it is something that needs to be practiced to get those hunger cues back. So if you don't wake up till 9 and you're eating at 10, that's fine. But if you're getting up, at 6 and you're not eating till 10, then you really need to change that. Okay, so after these bananas are mashed, we're going to add our quick oats. And you don't want to use steel cut oats because they just take longer to cook up. So the quick oats are the way to go. And then we're going to add our chocolate chips. Going to mix those together. Anybody else tend to go longer than an hour or 2 hours before breakfast after they wake up?
I did when I started intermittent fasting, but now I'm back to eating normally again.
It takes
Have
me
you
a while
noticed,
to wake up, so I eat later.
And whoever was talking about the intermittent fasting, so do you feel a difference in your mood at all since you've started doing breakfast again?
Yeah, I get going sooner. I have energy sooner.
Really? Isn't that interesting? So it really is the most important meal of the day. So after we mix our bananas and our oats and our chocolate chips, we're gonna add in our applesauce, and it's just a little bit, probably about, I think it's a 1/4 cup. You want to be careful to really not go over a 1/4 cup, because if it's too much, then they're just not going to cook right. And I've made that mistake before when I didn't have enough oats and I did the same amount of applesauce. So you really want to make sure that if you have less oats than the recipe calls for, you just use less applesauce.
Speaking of oats, I'm going to respond to something Lorraine wrote about, can you substitute rolled oats instead of quick oats? And I never knew this until just a couple of weeks ago, that you can turn your rolled oats into quick oats really, really easily just by putting them in the Cuisinart. It's all you're doing is making it literally a smaller piece, and it just will cook more quickly.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And Marissa, can you use bananas that have been frozen previously?
I have not. You have to microwave them, and I don't know how they would defrost, to be honest. So I'm not sure how that would work.
Hey, Laura, that might be dependent upon how ripe the bananas were when you froze them, because we freeze bananas constantly. And sometimes when we let it go too long, they end up mushier because they are so overripe. Like, I'll use that for banana cake or something, but sometimes they get really mushy if we haven't frozen them quickly enough. So it might be affected by that.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good point. And actually, I'll tell you a secret. These are actually rolled oats. These aren't quick oats, and these work fine. You just don't want to use the steel cut oats, I would imagine, because they just take longer to cook overall. Yeah. And I didn't put these in the Cuisinart, so that's just a note. So here's what it looks like all mixed together. Kind of looks like oatmeal cookie mix, sort of. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to scoop your mix onto either a greased cookie sheet or a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. And you're gonna put them in a 350-degree preheated oven, and they're gonna cook for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on your oven. And again, the great thing about this recipe is it has carbohydrate from the oats and the banana. And then you're getting a great source of potassium from the banana, which helps to keep our nerves functioning properly and helps to keep blood pressure under control. The carbs, again, are healthy for your gut and for your heart. And the chocolate chips add sweetness.
Can you do these with raisins instead of chocolate chips?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna set the rest to the side. We're gonna pop these in the oven. After they cook for 15 minutes, you're gonna put them on a cooling rack. Once they're completely cool, they look like this. I know
Are
it's
they
kind of hard.
crunchy? Are they crunchy or chewy?
They're a little chewy. I imagine if you cook them longer, they're going to be a little bit crunchy. These particular ones are a little chewy. And then what you can do, and you know, a lot of things are about preference here. So if you prefer to roll them in a ball so they're more, so they're rounder, you can absolutely do that. If you want to mash them down a little bit, you can do that so they turn out a little bit flatter. But what you can do afterwards is you can roll them in honey, and this is optional, and then you can dip them in crushed nuts. So I'm just going to dip this in honey, and then the crushed nuts. These are crushed almonds, for example, or they're sliced almonds. They
It
kind of
looks
just,
really good.
they're tasty. And so you get an added crunch by adding the almonds. And then you're also getting some zinc and a little bit of heart-healthy fat from the almonds. They also work as a snack too. So that's what they look like with the honey and almonds on top.
Oh, it's very pretty.
That's a question. If this is your breakfast, what's the serving size? How many should you eat for a healthy breakfast?
Yeah, great question.
They look
So
really.
so these are pretty, although they're nutrient dense, I would recommend pairing it with a protein rich food as well, just to give more nutrition and to increase the calories overall, because we need more calories in this for breakfast. A serving size really just depends on your appetite, honestly, and how hungry you are. I wouldn't recommend this be all you eat for breakfast, but if you have it with your breakfast, it kind of just, you know, what makes sense, 2 or 3 or. And so we're gonna move on to the next recipe, which would be a great complement to this. So we're gonna be making a smoothie bowl, otherwise known as a longevity bowl. And for this recipe, we're using, I'm using a Vitamix, but you can also use a blender. So whatever works for you. And what we are adding to this is okay, so here's a note. The recipe calls for, I think, 1.5 cups of almond milk. I'm using soy milk because I like to get the protein from the soy milk. And I'm actually using a little less because when I've done this in the past, it's come out a little bit too liquidy. So I'm just using a little bit less than the 1.5 cups. If you blend it and you notice that it's too thick, then you can easily add more liquid. It's easier to add liquid than it is to take away. So we have our soy milk. We're adding spinach and we're adding kale, about 1/2 cup each. We're adding about 1 cup of frozen blueberries. You can use blackberries or another type of fruit if you don't like blueberries. We're doing a frozen banana. We're doing about a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. Let's add a little extra. Doing a tablespoon of ground flaxseed, which is rich in omega, fatty acid, and also fiber. Then we're gonna blend it. I'll be right back. Any questions so far on this or any of the ingredients? So this is what it looks like after it's blended. It's kind of a dark purple color. And so what I mean by the texture is this is able to pour into the bowl. And it's actually a little thinner than I would have wanted. So that is why I recommend doing less milk, blending it, checking it with the spoon. And if you're planning on eating it, you know, in a bowl with the spoon, then you want to make sure that it's that right consistency. So after you pour it into a bowl, you can feel free to add granola. This is almond butter granola, so you can add that on top. And you can also add sliced fruit. So I'm going to put some sliced strawberries on top. And you can pretty much be creative in whatever else you're interested in or you want to have in here, you know, like more ground flaxseed or crushed walnuts or sliced almonds. You're welcome to add that too. And so there's actually one more ingredient that you can add, and that is almond butter. So I'm going to just drizzle the almond butter on top. There's so many variations of the smoothie bowl. You know, you could do peaches, you could do pineapple. The idea is that it's just going to give you a great boost of antioxidants, phytochemicals, fiber from the fresh fruit, right? And then fruit is a natural source of carbohydrate. So you're going to be getting that. And then if you add soy milk, you'll also be getting protein. And then there's so many possibilities, like I said, adding almond butter and flaxseed to give an extra boost of heart healthy fat. So the possibilities are, they're pretty endless. And then if you're in a hurry and you don't have time, you know, to sit down and eat this with the spoon, just add a little more liquid and put it in a cup, and then you can, you know, drink it on your way to work or at work. And it's been so hot too. So I imagine, you know, I'll be doing smoothies and smoothie bowls for a while. It just seems easier to drink smoothies when it's warm outside. Okay, so the last recipe we're doing is actually a fruit popsicle, and it's from the Live Well Kids Blue Zones recipe website. And so these are fun. Is there anybody out there with kids? You could tell me what people say, Tiffany.
Yes, there's some parents in here.
Awesome. Are they breakfast eaters? Are there any struggles with getting breakfast into the kiddos?
Always a struggle.
What's the struggle?
Daily struggles with slow eaters.
Slow eaters. Yeah. So what are some things that do work for the slow eaters for your kids?
Smoothies.
All right, I saw that.
Another struggle noted is they don't want anything and they're out of ideas.
Yeah. So also, you know, I encourage my parents too that I work with to kind of think outside the breakfast box, right? So like if your kid is a sandwich lover, you know, there's nothing wrong with a peanut butter sandwich and a banana in the morning. Or if they like milk, there's nothing wrong with a glass of, you know, whole milk and and a banana, you know, so it doesn't have to be something that is complicated or takes a long time. So long as you're hitting with the kiddos, as long as you're hitting the target, you know, even more specifically, with the dairy and the grains and the proteins and the fruit. Instead, I know I always talk in terms of carb, protein, and fat, but if you break that down even further, it's grains, dairy, protein, fruit and vegetable. So there are ways to definitely brainstorm to get those slow eaters all of their nutrients in a quick meal that's going to be not cause drama in the morning. Okay, so yeah, any sort of like nut butter sandwiches, like I said, you could even throw the banana in there if they're accepting to that. Smoothie, as you saw, is smoothies are great carriers for all sorts of nutrition, right? And then those cookies are a good idea. What we're gonna, because they're quick and they can be eaten, I think, in a pretty timely manner. What we're gonna do next might take a little longer to eat, but it might be something fun that the kids can get excited about trying and even making. So like I said, we're doing a fruit popsicle next, and the ingredients you need are gonna be these small little paper cups. They're about 3 ounces. And then you're gonna need some Greek yogurt. If you don't eat dairy yogurt, then you can use almond yogurt or coconut yogurt or soy yogurt as well. The recipe calls for plain yogurt, and to be completely honest, I prefer in this recipe vanilla yogurt, and that's just my preference. Some kids and some adults like that tartness of the plain yogurt, and I do too if I'm eating it in a bowl with fruit and granola mixed in. But when it's frozen, it kind of takes on a different taste. And the fruit that we're going to add to it, you don't really taste the sweetness. And that's just my honest opinion. So if you have a little kiddo who's a little bit picky or a little bit sensitive to tartness, then I would suggest starting with the vanilla yogurt, or you could do like half and half plain, half vanilla to kind of compromise. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is the first step is, oh yeah, in addition to the yogurt, we also have some fresh fruit. I'm using banana, strawberries, and colorful grapes. So I always like to add as much color as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice all of this fruit. Has anybody made these popsicles before? Anyone? No? All right, so after you chop your fruit, you pretty much have freedom to add whatever order that you want to. So let me grab my spoon real quick. So you have pretty much, like I said, freedom depending on what fruit combinations that you want. So I like strawberries and bananas mixed together. So I'm gonna fill the cup about a quarter way, about a quarter way. And then in the other cup, I'm gonna do, let's do some colorful grapes. And I'll do, make sure I have green, purple, and some red ones too. After that, all you're gonna do is you're gonna add some yogurt to the cup. Okay, so after you fill the cups like this, you're gonna take a popsicle stick and you're just gonna put it right in the middle. Like that. And you're gonna freeze it for a couple of hours. Then when they're frozen, they're gonna turn out like this, see? And the trick with these cups is that you kind of want to, because it's impossible to get it out like this, right? So all you have to do is peel the paper on the side like this, and comes out like this. Okay.
So
That's really
pretty.
pretty.
That's cool. Marissa, do all yogurts freeze equally?
Yes. And then let's take our grape one. We're gonna peel that away too. And then you have the pretty colors of the green and the purple on top. If you want to get the fruit more distributed equally, you would just have to, you could add some more on top. You could do it in the middle, then you could do it on top. So you can get creative with that too. But that's the gist of it. Yeah, so going back to that question, I feel like I'm still learning and trying to be better about doing something and then also having a conversation at the same time. So the breakfast ideas that somebody was asking, the savory ones, there's a lot of simple recipes if you eat eggs that have to do, you could mix a bunch of eggs together with like vegetables and different vegetables of your liking, and you put them in muffin tins and then you could bake them in the oven. That's an easy one too. That's more, that's more savory. I think somebody mentioned the egg burrito, which is great too. You could do egg quesadillas as well. Those work good for kids also, as well as adults, because they're easy to eat. Slice them up and they're not as messy as a burrito. And that could just add some flexibility and variety to the morning.
And
Also-
Marissa? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was also gonna say that a lot of the nut butters too, if you buy them kind of where the only ingredient is just that nut, right, and maybe some salt, those are often less sweet than like your Jif or your Skippy, which tends to be sweeter because they add sugar often. What are you gonna say?
And yes, Lorraine said her 2-year-old does not like eggs, whole nuts, and whole beans. She finds it hard to find a variety of protein sources for breakfast.
Does he like yogurt? Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yay. Okay. So yogurt has protein. Is it soy? Does he like soy yogurt or cow's milk yogurt? He likes all kinds. Okay, fantastic. So yogurt's a great source of protein. Actually, so is cheese, and so is cow's milk too. So I know that it's tough to get in a variety of foods with limited options, but it can be done. Does he like nut butters, did you say? He might. Oh, so that could be something too that you could kind of explore. You're gonna try it. Awesome, let me know. I'm excited. Keep me posted. I love helping people become breakfast eaters, especially little ones. Any other questions or concerns you want to talk about? How about, oops, I saw it in the chat, but it went away.
How about quinoa and hummus for protein?
Yeah, quinoa is a great plant-based protein, and hummus has some protein and some heart-healthy fat as well. What do you think that whoever asked that question, what would you use those two ingredients in? What would you make with that?
I've been trying to, it's for my 1.5-year-old, I've been trying to work in proteins that he does like the taste of. And so trying to work in, he's a big yogurt fan as well, but sometimes mixing in like quinoa or going more the savory route, spreading hummus on things has worked.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good idea. Have you tried putting the hummus and the quinoa like in a like a pita pocket?
That's a great idea. We'll have to try that.
Okay, keep me posted on that too.
Okay.
Hummus on avocado toast. Ooh, good idea.
Annette makes quinoa and fruit salad with citrus dressing.
Mm.
And Janet says, how about French toast? My daughter doesn't like eggs but loves French toast, and I soak the bread in custard for a few hours to really maximize the protein.
I'm sorry, soak the bread in what?
Custard?
Okay. That's a good idea. Ooh, that's a loaded question. How much sugar should kids have? Was that what the full question said? I only saw like the first blurb.
How much sugar should kids have each day?
Yeah, so it's tough to quantify the exact amount of sugar, but generally speaking, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends, I think, no more than 6 ounces of juice, I think, for kids under 8. And then, no sodas. And then a general rule of thumb is, a sweet a day, a dessert a day. So it's tough because there is a lot of sugar that's added, in different foods nowadays. But if the majority of the child's meal, it comes from fresh food, then, and the main beverage is, water or milk, juice on occasion, then you're already going to be limiting the sugar, with those couple of recommendations. But I think for adults, I think the American Heart Association says like 6 teaspoons or something like that, which isn't very much. And then a lot of people get scared of fruit because it has sugar. And even though it does have sugar, it's natural sugar. So it's not something that you should be concerned about. Same with dairy. Dairy has natural sugar. But the nutrition in fruit and in, dairy also, you have to take that into consideration too. That's why I brought up the idea too about with the yogurt, mixing half plain, half flavored or half vanilla. So you are monitoring and keeping the sugar lower than if you were to use all vanilla. And then you also kind of train your taste buds and train your kids' taste buds to not get used to the, totally sweet food. So I like combining things a lot like that. Same with the cereals.
Before we move on to additional questions, I'd like to introduce Tessa.
Hi, I'm Tessa Garner. I'm the Parent Engagement Coordinator at Beach Cities Health District. And Marissa, thank you for sharing all these recipes. But as you mentioned, the yogurt popsicle recipe is from the Live Well Kids program. It's a nutrition-focused program that we have in the Beach Cities schools. And I will put the link to that website in the chat. There's that recipe as well as other healthy recipes that are great to make for adults and kids. And then I also wanted to mention that we are working on creating the online version of that program for any parents. I know I saw Linda on here. She used to be one of the volunteers with Live Well Kids. And so in addition to the online Live Well Kids program, we do have online Mind Up lessons. So that's the mindfulness lessons in partnership with the Goldie Hawn Foundation with Mind Up. And so that's available too. And, I know that this group kind of skews toward adults, but I think that it's applicable for all of us. And in the theme of Blue Zones on October 7th is virtual International Walk to School Day. So you can move naturally by walking to school. All this information is available on the BCHG website. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, it's not nutrition or physical activity related, but more of the mental health side. We do have our Families Connected Speaker Series event on October 22nd, focusing on family resilience during COVID-19. We have Dr. Kelly Greco from USC. She is a really great speaker. And so I think it's a great opportunity for you and your families or by yourself to kind of plug into that and maybe do more of a holistic approach. I think it's super great that we have the opportunity to have these virtual cooking shows. And so I hope that we see you at some of the other events. And if you have any questions, you can ask Tiffany or ask in the chat. So thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you, Tessa. If anyone has questions for Marissa, feel free to unmute yourself or you can use the chat box.
Marissa, it's Joan. I wanted to thank you very much for what you showed us today. It's given me some ideas on expanding my horizons for breakfast since Amy can't take me out right now.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to hear that.
I really appreciate that, Marissa. Keep her off my back.
And Marissa, any questions for good things to put on top of oatmeal? I have almost every morning for breakfast, but I would like to have a variety of things to top it with, so it doesn't taste the same every single day.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, it kind of goes back to that point of, you know, are you more of a sweet or savory person? Like, do you like crunch? Do you like more of a softer texture? All those things, you know, will take into account what you choose. So generally speaking, some easy options would be sliced almonds, walnuts, raisins, brown sugar, chocolate chips, sliced bananas. Somebody mentioned dates, which is a good idea. I always forget about that. And then you can also sprinkle some ground flaxseed or some hemp seed on the oatmeal too, just to kind of up the nutrient boost if you like that. What do you, did you say, oh, and I also, you know, you could also add milk, soy milk, almond milk, and a nut butter too, if you'd like. So
Ooh, nut butter would be good.
yeah, that's my favorite. So obviously not, well, you could do all of those, but that would be a lot of toppings to put in.
The bowl's not big enough.
Yeah.
All at once.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so I like the combo of like oatmeal, milk, almond butter, some sliced bananas, and a couple chocolate chips, or a few. I shouldn't say a couple, because I eat more than two. But you know, some chocolate chips,
Right.
and that combination is good. It's more on the sweeter side, of course. And then another combo I personally like are raisins, walnuts, milk, and the oatmeal.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome.
Marissa, we have a comment in the chat box. Oatmeal idea, a pumpkin pie oatmeal with canned pumpkin and pie spice could be fun to try. What are the health benefits of pumpkin?
Ooh, that's a good idea. So vitamin A, pumpkin is high in vitamin A, potassium as well. So does anybody remember from the talk and the nutrition notes in today's session, what are the benefits of potassium?
For the heart.
Banana.
It's a quiz. Yeah, somebody said banana. Banana is high in potassium too. And somebody said heart regulation. Yeah, that's right. So nerve regulation, yeah, it does help in regulating our heart rhythms. And yeah, Tiana said blood pressure. So those are all right. You guys are great listeners.